Okay, welcome, ladies and gentlemen. A quick confirmation in the chat bar if you can hear us. I do see that Sean is hearing. Fantastic. Mandy, Arlene. Great. First of all, apologize for that delay. There does be something wrong with the webinar software that we're using. We tried to log at least 30 minutes ago and we were having difficulty, so we really apologize for that. But it does seem that it's working now and we can catch up. So I see Luanda's on, Kruger, Pabelo, Damiansley, awesome, Mariska, John, Craig, Bolt, Bevan, Ella, Karen, B, Grazian, Kahiso. We've got a lot of people on the line today. Thank you very much for being patient with us and giving us your time. We appreciate it. We are to make sure that the webinar runs smoothly as possible. And hopefully on time. So we're still going to jump right into the presentation. So ladies and gentlemen, this is the strategy area property, which is your starting point to property. Let's go on to the first slide. Now, if you don't know me, the handsome guy on your screen right now is Lawrence Bull, and I'm a professional property investor, coach, entrepreneur, and probably my favorite accomplishment is that I'm the of My Property App SA. And what we're here to talk about today is a concept called strategy, area, and property. So let's jump right into what I think is probably the most important starting point of any property's journey is the strategy. Now, in my mind, there are two key strategies in property. You've got on the left-hand side strategies, and on the right-hand side, you've got passive strategies. And a strategy is a unique approach. First strategy, and I've basically bucket them all into one strategy. So cash strategies is anywhere where you'll be earning pots of cash from a transaction. Sourcing, flipping, BRS, which stands for buy, renovate. In order to make this a little bit more real, I thought we could use a practical example. So here are two that recently did a deal, and their strategy was simple. It was the BRS, buy, renovate, sell. It's Dave and Jess. Those are the high-level details of their deal. Asking price of 1.6, just at a 1.4. They had quite a few legal costs, refurb costs, and their profit totaled at about £100. This was a very profitable deal for them, their first deal that they'd ever done. And it was in the Killarney area in Johannesburg. So if and explain to you exactly how they were able to add value to the property, because the BRS strat essentially means that you're buying a below market value distressed property, adding value, and then reselling. Now, some simple things that they did is one, they updated the feet of the property. You can see on the left-hand side, that's a before photo. On the right is an after photo. Before photo, you can see the a very outdated lampshade versus the very modern new style lampshade light. They're also, obviously cleaned up and then painted. A fresh pair of paint, changed the curtains, made it a little bit more modern, and then lastly took the tiling they took the carpets and replaced it with parquet flooring, which is a really nice touch. If we move to sort of the lounge area or maybe the dining, you can see again on the left-hand side, very old, needed a refresh. And you can see again, lampshades updated, the floors and walls had been painted, the floors had been redone. If we move to the kitchen, which was their big item, this is where they did most of their renovations, and most of your value will be added in your kitchen and your bathrooms. Firstly, you can see on the left-hand side, quite a small, cramped kitchen. There where the black stove is actually, or oven is a wall. You can see it's a very closed-off kitchen, not very spacious. So what they did is they first of all created, and so they knocked out that wall, made sure that the kitchen was a little bit more open and fresh. Also added a really nice centerpiece. That block of what do you call it? Fiber table cost them, I think it was 5 or 30,000 rand. So a huge investment, but I think it's paid off. And also update highly distressed property in the fact that it was lopsided or is in terrible condition. It was just an old property that needed to be modernized. And then we've got the bathroom. And the bathroom, as you can see, again, had a huge renovation. What they did is they actually replaced the bathtub and they also changed the direction. So if you can see where the bathtub is in relation to the window and where the bathtub is in now, in the new photo, you can see that they actually shift the bathtub. The reason why they did that was to create an open plan bathroom. There was a wall in between the bath and the toilet in the before photo. You can't see it so clearly now. And what they did is they knocked over that wall, changed the direction of the bathtub, the toilet, the shower, and the bath all in one place. And there you can see they also modernized the cupboards. Just made it. If I just go back here, the trick is not necessarily finding the most distressed down property, but rather sometimes just finding a property that needs a bit of modernization. In an area like Killarney, which is an old area, it's great because there's equity in the deal. And usually people have lived in those properties for so many years that up to date. That's where you've got an opportunity to come in. And with relatively minimal work, you can dramatically force the appreciation of the property, thus increase the value and get a resale. So that's an example of a cash strategy where you a pot of cash or profit from a transaction. This one being the buy, renovate, and sell. Okay, it looks like there's a few people struggling with sound. Yeah, there's a few people struggling with sound. Let me just do a quick test. Can anyone else hear? Please just post on the chat if you can hear me. Okay, there are a few people that are saying yes. Oh, guys, I'm really sorry about this. This is something that we can't really change. There are a few people that are and we are going to record this and have this online. So if you can't hear us or you can't get the experience, please go later. Okay. So I'm now on the next slide, which is all about the passive strategy. So we've done strategies, which is the pots of cash from one transaction. Your passive strategies is anything related to earning a recurring income from a transaction. So these are things like buy-to-let, multi-let income. So it's not a big pot of once off, but rather a monthly process. And what's great about strategy is this is where your financial freedom sits. And this is personally where my favorite strategy lies, which is multi-let. So if we go to multi-let, you can see here, this is a deal that I recently did. I will share with you some of the details of the numbers behind it. For now, I just want you to check on the right. That is the block of flats. Now, a multi-let is a property where you have multiple tenants in one property. A buy-to-let is tenant, one lease agreement. A multi-let is one property, multiple lease agreements, multiple tenants. And on the left-hand side, those are the key income and expenses you need to take account in order to analyze a deal. So you need to know what the rental is, the bond, the rates and insurance, management fee, maintenance, and then you can determine what your monthly profit is. The property in a little bit more detail. So flat in Rosettenville. Now, what's interesting about this deal is that no first-time buyer is going to buy this kind of property because one, the banks aren't very friendly on lending on these cases, so you'd have to be a cash buyer and also in a higher risk area. So the chances of a first-time buyer getting a loan, and if not getting a loan, getting the cash to buy is very unlikely. So the market for these properties to be sold to is very small, which means we've got negotiation. So much so that with this property, I was able to negotiate a hefty discount of 1.35. So not 1.8, but 1.35, which was a 450,000 Rand discount. One of the reasons as well is that he trying to get rid of his property in order to pay off his medical bills. So we were able to solve his need and in return get a good discount. And then here is the description that we received from the estate agent. A great investment opportunity. This block of flats consists of units, one bed, one 3-bed, and then 5 2-beds, general total rental income of 27,545. As I mentioned, you won't be able to get a loan very easily on this kind of property from a bank. So I had to approach several investors, get a lot of no's, but eventually I found an investor willing to loan me about 90% of the value of the property for the collateral of the house that I live in. So he took the collateral of my house, safeguard, and loaned me the money of the 12 of the nine. Important when you're looking at a long-term whole multi-let, it's important that you know the property is going to do over 10, 15, 20 years because you're getting into a long-term commitment with it. Here's the breakdown of the numbers. I do know that the slides are a little bit slow, so I will read everything for you. The rental on this property every month is $27,000. The monthly bond or payment basically to the investor over 12 years is $13,800. Rates and taxes is just over $1,100. There's building insurance of $600 and fee of 10% of the rental, $2.7, and the maintenance is $5. But it's just a provision that you put away every month in case a geyser bursts or some sort of issue happens in the property. You've got that provision to be able to take out. The monthly profit on this deal is just under 8,000 Rand per month, with the kind of strategy where your financial freedom lies, because most people need maybe 5 or on the higher end 10 of these properties to be able to retire off the income from their property. So that's why passive is for me the strategy to getting financially free, because you get that passive income that allows you to love as opposed to doing the work you have to do. The next slide shows you how this deal will perform over 15 years. So you can see in year one, monthly rental is just over 27,000 and the expenses are just 20. And that's what you saw on the previous slide. But every year, this property is going up by roughly a 9.5% in rentals. So every rent in this area is going up by between 9 and 10%. Year two, it's about 29,000, and so it starts to progress. But the expenses are expensive because everything becomes more expensive year on year. And then the difference between the green bar and the red bar, that is what we call your cash flow. So what you can see on the slide is I've just put in sort of a visual, show you that from year 1 to year 15, I'm projecting that there will be an 8.5% increase in the rental of the property. So in year 1, it will be worth 27,000, but then in year 2, it'll go up by 8.5. The way you can work that out is you take the rent you're receiving in year 1, which is 27,454 times 1.85. will give you 29,788. So the way in which you can determine if in year 1 my rent is 27, what your rent will be year on year. If you wanted to do it for year 15, you can say your rent in year 1 times 1.05085 to the square root of 15, which just basically means it's going to square root your interest of 8.5% year on year until you get to a figure of about 93,000. So this is just giving you an idea of how you can calculate what year rent would be, and if there was an increase, what year 2, 3, and 4. And a similar process for expense. And I've used an increase in expenses of roughly 6.5%, which is in relation to inflation. And what you can also see is in year 12, the expense is essentially half. And the reason why that is because the bond will be repaid after year 12. So the profit increases for me every month. And this is essentially how the graph looks, looking just at profit. You can see in year 1, it's 7,800. Year 2, it starts to increase. By the end of 15 years, this property will be generating roughly 90,000 Rand passively. Now, here's where I have the decision to, keep the property, keep earning the 90,000, but potentially pay a lot of tax, or actually refinance the property, extract some of the equity out of the deal, increase my expense base, and reduce so that my taxable profit also reduces. So those are the kind of things that that that's the kind of thinking that goes into the strategies when you choose them. Now that we've looked at strategies and very simply just the summary of that, make a lump sum of profit, or you've got the passive strategies where it's a income. It's smaller, it's but it's frequent income that comes in every month. Once you've chosen your strategy, the next step is to choose an area where your will make financial sense. Now, if you're looking for capital flips or for cash strategies, my recommended tool of and what you really want to look at is when you're looking at an area for flip cash strategy, you need to make sure that the capital appreciation is making sense. And if you're looking more on the rental side, effective yield is what's important. So let's break these down a little bit more. First of all, Lightstone is a very good tool, and it helps you understand exactly what a market. If we look at, for example, this is a report that I pulled for an area called Bonero Park in Kempton Park. And, what you can see there, that X marks the spot in the red circle, that's the property that I drew the report for. And if you look above it, you'll see there's another property labeled 5, 1, and they're literally the houses just behind and next door to the property. So what this report is going to tell me is what those properties 5, 1, and 2 sold for 6 to 12 months. Which is a very, very good thing when you're an investor looking for a below market value deal. You want to know what properties nearby that property sold that you can have an accurate resale value. Now, here's the detail. This would be on the net Lightstone report. You can see the detail of property 1, 2, and 5, and gives you a rand per square meter. Now, my favorite to do when working out a specific property's valuation is I will take the average of the rand per square meter. So, for instance, property number 1's rand per square is 1179. The second one is 158, and the third one is 1042. Those are the average rand per square meters. You divide that by 3 to get an average for those properties, which is 1256. And then what you can do is you can times 126 by the property size of the property you're evaluating, and you should get a relatively, if not very accurate, resale value. Another part of the Lightstone report, which again, I'm a very big fan of reports and tools and data, because as much as when you listen to a estate agent, they are incentivized to sell. They're commission earners, so they do to encourage us to make a decision, and sometimes they will say what they think we want to hear. Where using tools and data, it helps you validate what they're saying. It helps you validate their opinion. So the report that you hear is a suburb report telling you what the average resale value of different types of properties are. So you can see the green bar is sectional title, blue is freehold, and the blue is vacant land. If we're looking just at the freehold property, you can see from 2009 to 2016, there's been a steady increase of 7.5 capital appreciation area. The way you can work that out is you can take the value of the 2016 minus the value of the properties in 2009. You'll see how, so in this example, properties in 2016 sold for about 1,050,000 rand. In 2009, they sold for 656. So you take 1050 minus 656, which gives you 394. So that's 394,000 rand is the growth that this specific suburb has grown from 2009 to 2016. Now take the 394,000 divided by the starting point of 2009 of 656,000. You can see that there's been a 60% growth in the value of the property. 2009 to 2016, the property value has grown by 60%. Now, to understand how much it's grown per month, you need to calculate how many years the property, this growth has been happening. So it's been from 2009 years, gives you an annual growth of 7.5. Now you can safely assume that in year 2017-19 that this property will continue in that trajectory of 7.5. It's not a guarantee, because we don't know what the market's going to do. We don't know how the economy is going to be affected by the said in our environment, but at least it gives you a little bit more of a sense. See here, there's a quick question from Tamarain asking, why are you picking 8 years to measure the so the question is valid, and the reason why is because, as you can see on the property value in 2009 was 656, the property value in 2016 050. So during that period from 2019 to 2016 has been about 394. So in order to get a per rate, you have to take the growth that's happened over 8 years and divide it by 8 years to get a per annum rate. So I hope that answers your question. Next, we have TPN. Now, TPN is incredibly useful when you're looking at rental information. For me, is a strong tool for understanding appreciation and understanding the resale value of an area or of a specific property. But TPN works very well for rental information. So, for instance, this was a rental distribution chart that I received from who is the owner of TPN. And what you can see here is, where is the strongest renters today? And as you can see, 73% of that is where the uh, market is. That's where the opportunity is. You can see that there are a few people still renting between the 7,000 and 12,000 rand per month mark, and then 12,000 to 20 is a small percent, and then over 25,000, it's really the minority. So we want to be focusing on properties where the rental is under 7,000, because then we will be targeting 75%, 73% of South Africa's need for rentals. So this is a good graph because this tells me, where do I need to be focusing my attention? What area I be focusing on? Lower to middle class, lower to middle income. The next graph tells you what the average lease length in South Africa nationally. Now, today, on average, tenants are staying for 18.3 months. And as you can, the highest it's been since 2000, which is, again, great for an investor, because if you've got more tenants, you've got more customers, and the demand for housing will be higher, and that's where we can come in, buy properties, create the multi-lets, enjoy the cash flow. The next slide shows you what the national vacancy rates and escalations are. This is nationally. In Cape Town, it's different to Gauteng, to Durban. So you do need to go and find your specific area's escalation rates. But I just wanted to give you a sense could get out of TPN. So what you can see is simply in 2018. I've got a quick question here from Damiana. Do you pay for these services from Lightstone and TPN? Yes. So Lightstone has a membership fee where you can pull certain number of reports. TPN is also on a per report basis. And Premium member, you do get a discount on these. The average vacancy rate in South Africa nationally is 8.1%. 8.1. Sorry, guys, I just made a mistake there. As a premium, you actually are entitled to free TPN reports. So the Lightstone reduced rate, it's a discount, but with TPN, it's actually free. So just a quick update from our side. So really excited for you. The green shows you what the average escalation is. The average escalation between 2.9 to 2.7. So every year, rental is going up by about 2.7%, what the averages are saying. So when you are looking at a rental and you don't know, everyone, but you can use 2.7 as your rental escalation year on year. And then the vacancy rate is 8.1. That's giving you, now 8% relates to roughly 1 month a year. So you need to budget that 1 month of the year your property is going to be empty. You're not going to receive rent, and you need to ensure that that's in your calculator. You make a buying decision. This is probably my favorite slide because, like cheating, this is like fishing with dynamite. It tells you which areas are the best to invest. I was recently in Cape Town doing an event, so that's why I've got the Cape Town statistics on my slide. You can see there, if we start on the far left, you can see Greenpoint. And what Greenpoint is indicating there is that the bar is your capital appreciation, expected capital growth in that area. The green bar is the expected effective yield, or the rental yield. Red is the risk. So what you can tell very quickly is that Greenpoint is a very good area to buy if you are looking to force appreciation in particular. And that was exactly our experience, finding an old property that needed to be modified, force the appreciation by renovating it, and then selling for profit. The green bar is small, which indicates that it's not a very good rental area. You will struggle to get the rents that you require to cover your bond. So it's not a good rental area. If we look at the place called Boston, Boston seems to be quite an area for rental yields. You can see the blue bar indicates that the capital appreciation will probably be minimal. It will be at about cent. But the rental yield is looking at 10-15% mark. And the red, which is your risk of defaulting, is quite low. If we now bring our attention to Maitland, which is right in Boston, capital appreciation is okay, rental yield is okay, but you can see it's a very red area that there would be a high default rate or potential default rate to fulfill the strategy that you need. So it's important to just take the opinion of an estate agent, although they're very knowledgeable and very credible. You do need to make sure that you've data that backs up every decision that they make. So that would be TPN. And what TPN can also help you do is determine what the effective yield is. And in my mind, the most important calculation for you to determine if an area will make sense from a rental point of view. The effective yield is essentially the gross yield that takes into account the default rate. So your gross yield is your annualized rent divided by your asking price. I've used a quick example there where the annualized rent is 10,000 times 12 divided by the asking price of $1 million gives you a 12% gross yield. Now, we usually see that anything with 15% gross yield is not a good rental property because the rent, you can see that my rent is just going to cover my bond. It doesn't take into account the levies, the rates and taxes, the management, or the maintenance fee. So you're probably losing money every month. So it won't be an asset, but rather a liability. So that's what the gross yield tells you. But the gross yield is view because gross yield is only effective if you're getting 100% occupancy. As 100% occupancy, your gross yield is not the right indicator. So that's why we've brought in a concept called effective yield, which is your yield times 1 minus your default rate. So you basically reduce your gross yield by the risk in the deal or the risk of having no occupation. Sorry. So I'll just use an example here of Grassy Park. I did a bit of research this afternoon. Grassy Park is here in Cape Town. The average price in this area is around 700,000 for a 2-bed. Is your rent times 12 divided by your asking price is 12%. If we go to the effective yield, so we've assumed that the default in Grassy Park is relatively high. So we've used a figure of 14%. Now it looks relatively okay at 12% gross yield, but if you take the effective yield, which is the growth times 1 minus the default rate, meaning you're reducing the gross yield risk, means that this property is actually only yielding about 10.3%. So in my mind, an area that you would avoid unless you can find a really, really cheap deal, renovate it nicely and get a rent that covers the expenses. Also did a quick active yield calculation for some areas in Johannesburg. So Sandton, a 1-bed, 1-bath, can about 15,000 average purchase, which somebody might default or might be a delinquent tenant is 8.5. Again, your effective yield is your gross yield times 1 minus delinquency rate. So you can see in Sandton, it's not a good area to invest. Berea, so that in town, gross yield of 22, high delinquency rate, but yet the effective yield is still very positive. So it's percent. And then Boxburg, an area with slightly more risk. And yeah, unfortunately, it doesn't work from an effective yield point of view. Okay. So let's move on to the property. So we've looked at strategy. We've got the cash strategies. We've got the passive strategies. Cash is where you get profit from a transaction, and passive tools, you've got to use data that validates whether it's a financial decision or not. Once you've chosen your area, you can then go about buying your property. And the key indicator is the return on investment. This is telling you whether it is yay, a good deal to buy, or no, not a good buyer, not a good deal to buy. So return on investment stands for divided by your money in the deal. And your money in the deal is anything that you have taken out of pocket to invest into this property. So it's profit over capital invested. If we look at a flip, imagine you made a profit of 50,000, your capital invested is 350, and remember, capital invested meaning money you've put in. So not the bank's money or an investment money, but rather your money. So any renovation costs, holding costs, buying costs, anything that you've used your own money for equate to capital invested. So your specific example, the investment is 14.2%, which is, relatively healthy. And that's what you compare to the banks. So would it make sense to take your 350,000 Rand out of the bank where you're earning a 6 or 7, 9% interest and put it in property where you're earning 14%? I can't tell you the right answer. This is a personal decision. For me, it would make sense because my money is growing quicker, but potentially don't want to take the risk of the property market. Looking at return on investment from a rental point of view works similar in the sense that it's still profit divided by capital invested. But to work out your profit for a rental is you've got to take your cash flow, your monthly bit, and annualize it. So if your rent is 10, your expenses are 8,000, including all expenses, your profit every month is 2,000. That is the number you need to annualize to get your cash flow, or the monthly profit is 3,000 times 12 by... Can we take away this? Sorry, there's a camera thing in the way. I don't know how to. Yeah, so sorry about that, guys. Again, we have a bit of a challenge here with equipment, but I assure you that it's not anything to do anything about. We're just quickly reloading the slide deck, and we're going to scroll to the relevant slide. Okay, let's go back one. Fantastic. So again, sorry about that. So the monthly profit for this example is that there's 3,000 Rand cash flow times by 12, 300,000, give a return of investment of 12%. So again, this is where you as a investor decide, do I want to take my money out of the bank where I'm earning 6, 7, 8% risk first, or am I willing to put into a property where I'm enjoying 12% interest or returns, potentially the property appreciating in capital or appreciating in value year on year? So this is to at least make an informed decision, and you can relate it back to something that which makes interest. And that's also why we've created this app called My Property app. If you haven't heard about it, go check. There's the link on the top. And essentially what My Property app allows you to do, it creates the returns for you. So if you scroll through the slides, you can see that there's inputs. You first start with your comparable costs for your refurb costs, for other costs that might be included. There's also a section for FOST if you're getting money from the banks or if you're getting money from, an investor. And then finally, after you've inputted all the field, it'll then spit out what your return on investment would be. So for this specific property, I'd have to buy it at 700,000. My costs would be about 200,000, and I'd make a profit of 100, being a 44.55 return on investment. And what's also great about the app is that it doesn't just give you a once-off return for year one, but it also tells you what your return on would be over a long period of time when you're doing a rental. So what you can see on the slide here is that it's showing you the returns in year 1, 10, 15, 20, all the way through, and telling you at different points what your return would be. A more detailed view would be the expenses, which is in red, and then the cash flow, which is the profit, in blue. And you can basically track over the years as the escalates in rentals and escalates in expenses, you see what your property is going to do over a longer period of time. So if something around the numbers does then you're more than welcome to go and check out the myapp.property app. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm very sorry for the chaotic webinar that David is sitting here alongside me, and I see that he is very frustrated because we apologize for a smooth experience. It is unfortunately nothing we can do. Dave, you wanna add maybe quickly?
Yeah, I think there's been quite a few questions and we can go through some of those, Lawrence. So Colleen was asking, of course, naturally compare deposit towards the purchase of the property investments.
Yeah, that's a great question. Is it Colleen, or what was the name?
Colleen, yeah.
Yeah, great question. So yes, you can, put in a bigger deposit, which will increase your cash flow. But remember, your investment calculation is also taking your money into the deal. So if you increase your by putting more money in, it might not affect your ROI that much because your capital invested will. So yes, your cash flow goes higher, but also the money you're putting in goes higher. And that's how the return on investment calculation works, is it takes the profit you're making over the money you've inputted. So put in, you'll make more profit, but the percentage return might not be that favorable. And that's where you go on. Sometimes putting a 30% deposit makes financial sense. Sometimes putting a 10% or putting 5% deposit makes financial sense. You work out what the return would be.
Deal with the eviction risk.
With the risk. Yeah, sure. So that's a great question. Something that we do in Rosettenville, which is Joburg South, and it's a lower income area. I don't advise us in the better areas in South Africa, but what we've done is we've put in our agreement a clause that says if you default on your rental, we have, as landlord, the ability to put another person in your property. So we give you 2 or 3 weeks. If you haven't paid within that period of time, we can legally put another person into the property with you, and that's where you go, your big friends from school, whatever, to move in and make it really uncomfortable for them. What you can also do is there's a lot of great insurance products looking at months guaranteed rent, and they help you with the eviction process. So there are some goods out there.
I think it also comes down to a matter of prevention. It's make sure you're using someone like TPN to vet your tenants properly. And then obviously, if you have a really good attorney like Bruno, Samal, or Solna Stain, then they can really help you with that eviction process, and they can help you set up a lease that's going to help prevent the eviction being necessary. More questions. Slee asked a bit of a technical questions. Are these returns annualized? Lawrence? They're all annualized.
Yes. So that's a great question, Slee. And yes, look at annualized returns. So if you're getting let's say a flip that's a 6-month deal, then remember you need to times it by 12 divided by 6 to get it back to that figure.
And then obviously Mark and Slee are one that would be spoilation, and it's definitely not recommended. So please don't do that.
Yeah, no. As I mentioned, Mark, no. Well, you can technically do it. It's lower, higher risk areas. You can put into your lease agreement that if somebody defaults, you can put another tenant in there. So we have actually applied that principle. It won't work in your higher income areas, or it's a higher risk strategy for a high risk, but it has paid off for us.
Okay, so some more questions out of the chat. Krugin, when driving for cash, how do I get hold of the owner's information so I can do cold calling? So a little bit out of scope, but you can go ahead and answer that.
Sorry, could you repeat?
So when you're doing driving for dollars and you identify a property that you want to buy or that's distressed, find out who owns that property.
Yeah, I mean, I think the easiest way would be through Lightstone. If you can get the address of the property, and I think I'm not exactly sure how much it costs, 5 or 10, and you're able to get the contact details of the owner. Otherwise, you go through a tracking service, Google someone who's tracking.
Yeah, So Lightstone will not in the included reports that we have, they'll give you the easy contact report, which will give you details of the owners and pulls it off their credit profile, which is really good.
Sorry, actually, John, Mark's one point, because it is a very interesting conversation to have around where does the spoliation of privacy come into play. So if you can, and if you do have time, please come and join us on 21st of Feb in Pretoria. We've got a special SAPN event happening just around evictions, and we're going to have Saul and Bruno Samau, two of the best property experts in Africa, come and speak and share their experience and knowledge about anyone else are a little bit hesitant or fearful of what's legal and allowed. Please come and check that out.
So very out of scopes. What's Soccer asking about what's about structuring and restructure for tax and other implications. That's definitely not something we can answer with the level of authority. I can tell you what Lawrence and I do personally. And when you've got a holding property, that are holding properties like holding companies, and often with companies to be owned by trusts, that's generally the safest and most tax efficient way to do it. But definitely keep up to date with our events, because I'm pretty sure we'll do another webinar on structure and tax, or we'll be running one of our live events on that topic. And then someone who's expert and has the authority to tell you that sort of can give you the correct answer. Let me read a few other questions. Neo's asking, did the guys, so he's talking about Jess and Dave, I assume. So I can speak about that. Jess and Dave actually did this as a living flip. So they moved in and they did the renovations as they lived there. So at the moment, furnished as it is, and they'll sell it fully furnished. And when you do a refurb of that quality, you really want to make sure that you're furnishing it for people, because property will sell for quite a lot in that market.
What's great about them, and they're very unique, is they're both architects, so they were able to do all the architectural design work for free. It was their time. They're also young, innovative, very hipster, and they were investing in an area that is very common, that has a lot of hipsters, so they were able to renovate for the market. We did actually go and do a podcast with them a couple of weeks ago, and we also did a quick video interview. So please go and check out the podcast Prop Chat Pulse there if you want to hear their story, how they started about 4 months ago and did their first, and now they're looking at their next deal again in Colombia, where they're looking at a bigger profit of even over 500,000. So a couple to be following.
So I want to take one more question, but before I get there, I think I want to quickly summarize the Lightstone and TPN offerings. So in short, what we negotiated with Lightstone is that if you're a silver or a premium member, or even just a free, you can get a discounted rate on your monthly subscriptions. What is it? It's not discount in your account, but we give you a new account that's at a discounted rate. So unfortunately, if you have an account with then you would have to see that sort of counts into that sort of agreement through. Again, we're busy formalizing the technical details, but if you're a premium member, you've got to let me know, ask TPN to generate you those a lot faster and more efficient, and that should happen month. So I think the last question I want to do, when TPN training.
So maybe I can touch on that, Motsako. So we are planning a prop tech. We haven't got a date as of yet. But for the prop tech evening, we're going to do a demonstration and tutorial of Lightstone TPN as well as My Property app, because as much as these tools are very valuable, they're not always easy to use. So we've decided to put a prop tech evening together. We'll be sharing how to get started and how to use these tools to your benefit. We don't have a date just yet. As soon as we do have one, we will send it to the mailing list, and it will come on a first come, first serve basis.
For me, that's the importance of becoming a premium, becoming a member, getting your account set up, is that you can get our correspondence. And when a new event pops up, or we have a new with our marketing person, Michelle, yesterday, and she's asking very nicely, make sure you've white labeled our events and everything else. So Mutsuka, if you want to become a member, I'll quickly put the offering over there in a second, but you need to go to members.sapropertynetwork.com, and then you'll start hearing about us. And in closing, I want to ask one question from Domina. So the question goes like this. So all in all, based on discussion here, what are the 2 take-home messages you'd give to someone trying to find their first?
I think if we can go back to the slides, that's the perfect way to end the summary, which is to start with the strategy, to move into an area that strategy works, and then to start analyzing the deal. So I think the important thing is where do you see yourself in 5 years' time? it's going to influence what your strategy financial freedom figure would be. If you need 50,000 Rand per month passively coming into your account to retire, then that means that you need to be buying at least 10,000 Rand passive income every year for those 5 years. Your immediate goal is in year one to earn 10,000 Rand from property rentals in year one. In order to find 10,000 Rand of passive income, you probably need about 3 rental properties to be able to generate that kind of income. So you've got yourself now a much bigger goal. So I think start with where you want to be in 5 years' time, break it down into what you need to do this year, stick to the area that's going to that strategy by using the tools like Lights and TPN, My Property app. And then once you've got an area, then spend the rest of your time becoming an expert of the properties in that area. So that would be maybe that's not just 2 things to take away. Strategies that are cash strategies or passive strategies. Cash is where you're earning capital. Strategies is where you're earning a recurring income. Areas using tools like TPN and rentals and lifestyle sales to get accurate comparable information. And then finally, when you're looking at make sure you're using a financial metric like ROI. We do have another webinar on the members portal for Is It a Dud, which talks about the detail of return on equity, rate of return, and basically breaks down all the different ins and metrics you can use from a financial point of view. Here's just a quick resource list if you want to get onto TPN, Lightstone, My Property app, or AfricanPropertyNetwork.com. The bottom link, that is our website. That's been registered as a free member. The free, and I'm sticking to it. There are my details as well as Dave's if you want to get in contact with us. And Dave, you close off. I saw that you put an offer on the webinar.
Yeah, so I put a link in as well, and if you're not a member yet, you can just go to members.sapropertynetwork.com and get your free membership over there. If you have any questions or need some help, we've got a help desk set up, and you can just send a message to help@propertynetwork.com.
Yeah. So guys, again, I think Dave and myself and from the whole team here at South African Property Network, we really apologize for the craziness of this webinar. I know that the sound went on and off, the slides went on and off, and it's really something that we'll take up with our software. It's nothing that we could have done better, but I hope that you got some out of this. Perhaps if you want, we can online. Thank you for sharing your questions, and thank you for being a part of this. Until next time, the recording will be up and it will be on the member profile, members portal. Until next time, I hope you enjoy and happy investing.